Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are plunging into the tactics and, well, the remarkable success of one of football's most compelling young managers, Xabi Alonso.
It really is quite a story, isn't it? I mean, that transformation last season, it felt almost unbelievable as it was happening.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, we've pulled together quite a stack of sources, everything from detailed set piece analysis, some really intricate tactical breakdowns,
Mhm.
and even insights from online discussions comparing him to some of his contemporaries.
Which is interesting because it gives us a window into not just what he did tactically, but how his whole approach is sort of being seen and debated out there.
Exactly. So our mission here is basically to understand the recipe behind that incredible turnaround at Bayer Leverkusen. We want to pull out the key bits about his coaching philosophy. We'll look
Mhm.
at the hard data, goals scored, formations, that sort of thing, but also the, let's say, more nuanced aspects, like how his own amazing playing career,
Oh.
playing under legends, how that shaped his style.
Yeah, getting inside the mind of a coach who played at that level under those specific managers. It's fascinating. You can almost see the layers,
Yeah.
the different influences.
You really can. So get ready. We're going to unpack how Leverkusen went from, well, staring down a relegation battle to becoming domestic invincibles. Okay, let's start there then. The sheer scale of this turnaround. When Xabi Alonso actually took the reins at Bayer Leverkusen, that was October 2022. Where were they?
Oh, they were in serious trouble, deep trouble. Sitting 17th in the Bundesliga table,
Yeah.
properly in relegation fight. I mean, the feeling was they were massively underperforming their potential.
And what was the immediate impact in that first partial
It
season?
was pretty swift, actually, and really positive. By the end of that 22-23 season, he'd already hauled them up to 6th place, got them into the Europa League,
Wow.
and they even went deep in Europe that year, reached the semifinals, only lost to Mourinho's Roma, which is, no disgrace. The sources do note that initially his tactics were leaning quite heavily on the counterattack.
Okay, makes sense given the situation. But then the real history-making season, the one everyone talks about, that's 2023-24.
Yeah, this is where it goes from good turnaround to, well, legendary, at least in German football terms. They won the Bundesliga title, and they did it undefeated.
Undefeated.
Think about that. Ending Bayern Munich's 11-year stranglehold on the league without losing a single game. It's incredible.
Yet it wasn't just the league, was it?
No, they did the domestic double, won the DFB Pokal as well. Their only loss the entire season across all competitions,
Everyone.
just the one, right at the very end, the UEFA Europa League final against Atalanta. That was it.
There's a striking fact in the sources, too, about their early form that season. Puts it in perspective.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
By the winter break of 23-24, they were the only team in Europe's top 5 leagues still unbeaten.
Ah, right. That run.
25 competitive games, 22 wins, 3 draws. That set a new German record. I mean,
Yeah.
the progress in just over a year is just astonishing.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is how that success, it isn't just down to, say, bringing in new players or getting lucky breaks. It seems deeply rooted in Alonso's actual philosophy.
Which comes from his playing days.
Exactly, which in turn comes directly from those incredible playing days.
And what playing days they were. I mean, nearly 15 years at the absolute peak. Liverpool, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich. Giants of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, being a core part of that dominant Spanish national team. 2 Euros, a World Cup.
And think about the managers he played under. Pep Guardiola,
Yeah.
Jose Mourinho, Carlo Ancelotti, Rafa Benítez. I mean, that's like a masterclass in different top-level approaches, isn't
It
it?
really is.
And the sources really emphasize how he draws on all those experiences. You can almost see these different threads, things he learned from each one, woven into his own unique style.
It sounds like he hasn't just copied them wholesale, though. One source mentioned his belief in encouraging players to have their own criteria on the pitch.
Yes, that's a key point.
Yeah.
Making decisions based on the game, not just following instructions like robots.
Right, not robots.
He wants thinking players. And this points to a really crucial balance in his style. One source used this interesting idea, suggesting his approach sits somewhere between positionism.
Okay, what's that roughly? Like Guardiola, tiki-taka, system focus.
Yeah, system-centric, occupying specific zones, that kind of thing. Between that and what they called relationism,
Relationism.
which is more about sort of player autonomy, the fluid connections and decisions players make based on their relationships on the pitch. Maybe more like Ancelotti or Zidane at Real Madrid.
Okay, so it's not purely one or the other. It's not total structure or total freedom, but A blend.
Right.
Using a framework, but letting the players be intelligent within it.
Precisely. It's like giving them a clear map,
Yeah.
but trusting them to choose the best path based on what they see unfolding, relying on their chemistry and understanding. That blend really seems to reflect his own diverse playing history under all those different types of coaches.
Let's dive into the attacking side then, because wow, this is where Leverkusen really caught the eye last season. The sources describe their identity as, exhilarating, free-flowing, just really enjoyable to watch, and
Yeah.
confident.
That confidence, yeah, it's absolutely fundamental to how they attack. Formation-wise, they mostly settled into a 3-4-2-1 shape
Yeah.
during that main 3-3-24 season. It sort of evolved from the 3-4-3 they used a bit earlier.
And within that structure, they used some really specific, effective principles. First one mentioned is ball near overloads. What's the thinking there?
Okay, so the core idea is using more players around the ball to basically pull the opponent's defensive shape out of whack.
Right.
By drawing defenders towards the ball carrier, they intentionally create gaps, valuable space somewhere else on the pitch.
Yeah.
And because they're so secure in possession,
High confidence again.
exactly, they can take these calculated risks. They know their counterpress is strong if they happen to lose it. One source did note there's not one distinct pattern to how they create these overloads, which shows they're adaptable in how they do it.
Okay, so attract pressure, create space elsewhere. Makes sense. Another principle mentioned is changing tempo and body orientation. How does that work?
Well, they're absolute masters at blending different speeds of play. They might circulate the ball patiently, maybe quite slowly,
Drawing the opponent out.
yeah, creating the gaps they want. Then boom, when the space opens up, they suddenly switch to a much higher tempo, really direct, progressive passing forward.
So it's that deliberate patience, then bang, acceleration.
Exactly that. Patience is vital. And there's a small but really crucial detail mentioned, body orientation.
How the player receives the ball.
Precisely. How a player positions themselves when they get it. Are they facing back, maybe for a safe pass to keep possession? Or if there's space, are they turning forward immediately? That choice dictates the tempo change. They basically use the opponent's own pressing intensity against them baiting pressure, then playing quickly through it or beyond it.
That sounds incredibly smart. Very sophisticated. Okay, and the third attacking principle the sources highlighted was minimal width. Now that sounds a bit counterintuitive if you're trying to create space.
It does, yeah,
Okay.
but it works for them. Typically, they only operate with one really high and wide player on each wing. Just one.
Okay.
But that's enough to stretch the opponent's back line horizontally. And doing that actually helps create more space centrally.
I see.
Space that their attacking midfielders or the wingbacks can then exploit. Opponents often prioritize packing the center, right? Being compact.
Yeah.
So they kind of concede space out wide. But Leverkusen uses that central focus of the opposition to their advantage.
And they're comfortable playing through that crowded central area.
Absolutely. They seem very adept at navigating the opponent's press, using secure, short passes, playing within it, and then beyond it. And the sources also point out their tactical flexibility here. They weren't afraid to use a narrower attacking shape sometimes. Yeah, like maybe only 45 meters wide, especially against teams like Bayern Munich. In those games, they might prioritize being set up for quick defensive transitions, even if it meant having much less of the ball.
Like that game where they only had 36% possession against Bayern compared to, say, 73% against Gladbach?
Exactly. That shows real adaptability, a pragmatic side to Alonso's approach. It's not just one way of playing. And look, while the attack was, spectacular, their defensive structure and how they handled transitions, that was equally critical to the whole thing working.
Right, you can't win undefeated without being solid.
For sure. The sources highlight how elite they became at pressing the opposition high up the pitch, especially during the opponent's build-up phase, forcing them into less controlled long balls, basically.
And their counter-pressing, the reaction when they lost the ball, that seemed to evolve under Alonso.
It did, yeah. Analysis showed that back at Real Sociedad B, his counter-press was maybe more aggressive, more centrally focused. At Leverkusen, particularly in that first season, it was often less immediately aggressive, a bit more delayed.
Why the delay?
It seemed like a deliberate tactical choice.
Yeah.
That slight delay gave the wingbacks crucial time to recover their defensive positions after they'd bombed forward. It stopped them getting caught out wide open.
So tailoring the press intensity to the specific system and personnel makes sense. What about when they settled into their deeper defensive shape?
They consistently shifted into a very compact block, often forming a 5-2-3 shape, especially during that dominant 23-24 season. And a really significant factor that allowed them to do this effectively
Well, what's that?
was their amazing ability to score the first goal. In the initial analysis from 23-24, they scored first in something like 14 out of 18 matches.
Scoring early gives you so much tactical freedom, doesn't it? Lets you defend deeper if you want.
Precisely. It let them sit in that compact block more comfortably, knowing the opponent had to come onto them, and then they could hit them on the counterattack.
And within that 5-2-3 block, how did the roles work?
Well, the attacking midfielders and the forward would narrow right down, making it
Yeah.
really hard to play through the center. Then the wingbacks were key. They'd aggressively press the opponent's wide players,
Okay.
knowing they had cover from the three central defenders behind them. And those center backs, they were comfortable covering wide areas if needed, and really aggressive stepping up into 1v1 duels.
And the two midfielders in the middle providing that shield.
Yeah, the double pivots. Those two central midfielders provided that absolutely vital defensive presence just in front of the back three and inside the wingbacks. It just created a really solid, difficult structure for opponents to try and break down centrally.
Beyond the tactics and systems, obviously the players themselves were crucial. And the recruitment just before that big 2023-24 season, that seems like a really major factor looking back.
Oh, absolutely huge. Bringing in experienced heads like Granit Xhaka, Alejandro Grimaldo, Jonas Hoffmann, and then the promising young striker Victor Boniface. That added such a necessary blend of proven quality and experience to the squad.
And these new signings, alongside the existing players, they just seem to absolutely thrive under Alonso, didn't they? Grimaldo particularly is highlighted as someone who just exploded.
Yeah, he had an incredible season. And the goal stats from that 23-24 data really underline the impact, especially the new attacking players. Boniface got 11 league goals.
Not bad for a first season.
Not bad at all. Grimaldo, playing nominally as a defender, a wingback, he netted 8 league goals.
Incredible output from that position.
It really is. And Hoffmann chipped in with 7 goals, too. That's a huge chunk of their attacking threat coming directly from those key summer signings.
And speaking of attacking output, we absolutely cannot skip over set pieces.
Yeah.
One source we looked at really dedicated specific analysis to this, and it was clearly a massive weapon for them.
Oh, their dominance from set pieces was remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
There was early data from the start of the next season, 24-25, suggesting over 40% of their goals, 6 goals early on, came from set piece situations.
40%.
Yeah. And they were apparently the highest scoring team in the league from set pieces and corners specifically, even ahead of teams usually known for it, like Stuttgart. They had 4 goals just from corners in that early data set.
And this wasn't just luck, was it? There was structure behind it.
Definitely not luck. The sources give a lot of credit to their set-piece coach, Sebastian Perella. His tactics were described as simple but highly effective.
Simple but effective. I like that.
Huh.
And there's one fascinating, really specific example given in the sources about a Florian Wirtz corner tactic.
Yeah.
And it's quite ingenious.
Oh, yeah, this really highlights the level of detail they went into. They'd use Wirtz, who, isn't exactly known for winning headers.
Right, not his main strength.
Exactly. But they use him counterintuitively. His job on certain corners was apparently to screen. So basically to block or impede the defender who was marking Leverkusen's main aerial target.
Like Jonathan Tah, maybe?
Yeah, someone like Tah, often positioned towards the far post. So Wirtz's job wasn't to win the ball, but to stop Tah's marker getting to him cleanly. And it involved other elements too, like maybe another player trying to distract the keeper or deceptive runs to pull defenders away. It's just a brilliant, really specific tactical detail that shows the depth of their planning, that creativity, even in dead ball situations.
Okay, shifting gears slightly now. One of the sources we looked at, it included some online discussions comparing Xabi Alonso to other managers, particularly Xavi Hernandez, given they both had those elite playing careers and moved into management fairly recently.
Yes, I saw that. It came from, I think, an online discussion forum, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to frame it as representing the viewpoints and perceptions within that community.
Absolutely. We're just reporting impartially on what that specific source contained.
Yeah.
So according to that discussion, what were the points raised that tended to favor Alonso in that comparison?
Well, arguments people were making included things like Alonso having maybe more relevant B-team coaching experience before the top job, his tactics being seen as more flexible, more adaptable.
Which we've talked about.
Right, potentially influenced by playing for different styles of clubs and managers.
Mm.
Participants in that discussion felt he improved players more effectively, created a better overall environment, thinking about staff, recruitment, that he got more out of his specific squad, Personality-wise, he was perceived as maybe less stubborn, more flexible, and that his team handled pressure better, showed more of a winning mentality. Also, he was seen as being really respected, even loved by his players, and tactically using multiple approaches rather than having, as someone put it, one pony syndrome.
Okay. And on the flip side, what about the points raised in that same source that were critical of XABI? Again, just serving as the counterpoint in that comparison they were making.
Sure. And again, just purely reporting the perspectives voiced in that discussion.
Yeah.
Points raised against Xavi included a perceived tendency to complain more, maybe seen as arrogance or stubbornness by some. A view that he didn't always know how to rectify issues during games. Some mentioned finding his attitude, quote, annoying. Others felt he lacked self-criticism or composure sometimes, didn't inspire players quite as much, stuck too rigidly to one tactic.
A one pony thing again.
Yeah. And perceived whiny behavior or blaming external factors like referees or how the opposition played. Those were the specific arguments made in that particular discussion thread we looked at.
And it's really crucial, isn't it, to stress these are just viewpoints expressed in that specific source material, not our own analysis or any kind of endorsement.
Precisely. We're just conveying the range of opinions that were present in the sources we gathered for this deep dive.
Looking ahead then, one piece of speculation that was heavily featured in the sources, and which is now official news, of course, is Xabi Alonso's move. He's heading to Real Madrid for the 2025-26 season.
Yeah, that was widely anticipated, wasn't it? And it's clearly the next huge chapter in his coaching story, taking over arguably the biggest club in the world.
Huge step. And there was one other interesting little thought presented in one source, looking even further down the line, speculating about a potential future managerial rivalry. Alonso at Real Madrid versus Cesc Fabregas at Barcelona.
I saw that too. Yeah, based on their kind of similar trajectories, high-profile midfielders from that Spanish generation, moving into coaching, experiencing different influences. It's an intriguing idea, isn't it? Thinking about the next generation of big managerial clashes in the La Liga.
Definitely one to keep an eye on, maybe. So, wrapping things up, there you have it. You've really seen how Xabi Alonso's unique blend, that wisdom from his playing days, combined with some really clear tactical innovation, how it transformed Bayer Leverkusen from, relegation candidates to domestic invincibles.
It's quite the journey, and you see it in the details, don't you? From those really clever, well-drilled set-piece routines that Sebastian Parilla designed, to the fluid attacking principles built on those overloads and tempo changes, and then that adaptable, really compact defensive block. It's a complex system, but it proved incredibly effective and clearly tailored to the players he had. And we've touched on those perspectives from the sources, including those comparisons like with Xavi, highlighting how some perceive his flexibility and perhaps his player management skills. I think what really stands out, though, is how a coach who is still relatively young, still quite early in his top-level senior career, has shown such tactical depth, such adaptability, and crucially, that clear ability to not just get results, but to genuinely improve players and build a real winning environment.
Which leads to the big question now, doesn't it? As he prepares to step onto that absolutely immense stage at Real Madrid, one of the biggest jobs in football, how will this specific recipe for success, the one he perfected at Leverkusen, how will it translate? Different pressures, different players, arguably even higher expectations. What new facets of his approach might we see emerge?
That's the fascinating next step, isn't it? We'll all be watching very closely.
That's it for this deep dive. We really hope you found these insights as compelling and as valuable as we did putting them together.